All right, how's it going, guys? Today, by popular demand, I'm going to be doing a mistweaver guide. They are by far the most powerful healers in 8.1, so a lot of people are trying to figure out exactly how they work and what they can do to be playing them properly. Everything that I say in this guide is my experience and my opinion with playing mistweaver. I'm not going to say that it's guaranteed to be right, and I would definitely, maybe poke around for a second opinion. There's a lot of mistweavers out there, so if anyone disagrees with me or has a different opinion, you can kind of weigh the options and pick for yourself. But this is my opinion on how mistweaver can and should be played. So hopefully this helps you out. First thing I'm going to talk about, I normally talk about whenever I'm doing a guide, is races. I think mistweavers actually have quite a bit of races that they can play and actually be viable with, way more than just shaman. Shaman, it seems like orc and dark iron are the best. So if I were playing alliance mistweaver, if I was playing alliance, there's a lot of races I've seen mistweaver work with. So obviously humans, one of them. Human allows you to be able to play relentless way more frequently, and honestly, in general, human with trinket is still not that bad because it's a 1.5 cooldown, which allows you to trinket a minute 30 seconds sooner. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. Dark Iron Dwarf is obviously really powerful in this meta. You don't really see too many Feral Druids around, but Shadow Priest, you get out of, that Silence. Boomkins, you get out of the Root Beam. Same with Gnome. So Gnome is also viable. Dark Iron Dwarf is viable. Night Elf is actually really crazy. I've seen some people play Night Elf. You can Shadow Meld things midair, Chaos Bolts, Death Coils. And one thing I actually see some mistweavers doing when they play Night Elf is they actually just meld and go for drinks, and ROP doesn't keep you in combat. So let's just say, you're chilling over here. My dogs hate me. Let's just say you're chilling over here. You could ROP, you could port, they can't get back to you, you press Shadow Meld, you sit down for a drink, and no one could get to you. So I've seen Shadow Meld utilized well. I would just kind of say pick your poison if you're playing Alliance. Whatever you feel like you're lacking the most. Survivability, I would probably say Human's going to be the best. If you're struggling against things with the magic debuff, Shadow Priest, Boomkins, which are super meta at the moment, Dark Iron could be good. If you're really struggling with Root Beam, which maybe you might not be because Way of the Crane can actually get you out of the Root Beam, Gnome could be pretty good. There's a lot of options for Alliance. I'm going to talk about Panda. I was going to talk about it for Horde, but you could also play Panda for Alliance as well. Panda in previous expansion, it was terrible. Mainly because Paralysis was a 15-second cooldown. Now Paralysis is a 45-second cooldown. So having that extra in cap is actually really, really crucial for CC's chains. I see a lot of people play Panda. The verse buff is really good, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. But I think probably the most dominant race for Orc, because I feel like the only weakness that monks have right now is getting swapped to and dying in stuns. That's what I feel is the only weakness monks have. If you get caught in a bad position, if you get caught with no CDs, no trinkets, things like that, you can just get absolutely obliterated in a stun. So I feel like Orc has done me really, really well on my mistweaver. I've debated going Panda because I do think it's actually a pretty good backup race for Horde. I don't think any of the other Horde races are really worth talking about. Maybe Undead if you feel like you're really struggling with fears, but that doesn't really seem to be the case for me personally. But Orc is just, it's always going to be so powerful. You can have that, you could have Blood Fury macroed into your Cocoon or your Way of the Crane, depending on how you want to play it, and things of that nature. So once again, at the end of the day, I personally feel like Orc is the best. Nothing new here. So you have a lot of options you can kind of explore, and also you can play something that may be your favorite race without it being too detrimental to your gameplay. So mistweaver is pretty versatile in terms of races. Now I'm going to talk about talents and honor talents here. These talents are most likely almost never changed. There's a few of them that are changed, but for PvP, I would recommend always using Miswrap. It's just super powerful. Enveloping Mist is probably one of your strongest heals, right under Surging Mist. You don't use Envelop all the time, and there could be some really weird scenario where if you think you're insane, you play Chi Wave, maybe versus a Rogue, you pre-Chi Wave a blind, you get put in combat, you can't get sapped off of it. It's some pretty cheeky stuff. Miswrap definitely going to be your go-to. Enveloping Mist duration increased by 1 second, and the healing bonus increased by 10%. Obviously, really powerful. So Chi Torpedo is the go, in my opinion. I've tried Tiger's Lust a few times. I think Tiger's Lust could be viable depending on the strategy. if you're playing against a hunter, for example, and he's rooting you and into trap or something, or back when Feral Druids had the melee talent root, Tiger's Lust was really powerful if you're playing against mages. The only problem I see when I play Tiger's Lust is even if I'm not being attacked with Chi Torpedo just for the raw mobility, is the little sprint you get after from Chi Torpedo is so important. Like if I'm trying to LOS polys, I'm just like running around the pillar, just being able to have that extra speed, and it could even stack. And I didn't actually ever realize that, but you can actually time it to where if you roll at the very last second of the buff, it actually refreshes it and gives you the full 60%. That's actually pretty sick. So you might actually be able to get, no, you can't get it. Close though. But yeah, so I think Chi Torpedo is definitely the go-to there. Tiger's Lust you can maybe use if your teammates are getting stuck in a lot of roots, you're getting stuck in a lot of roots, but just understand that you are sacrificing a fair bit of mobility, so it's kind of a trade-off. But Tiger's Lust is pretty powerful. You see a lot of Windwalkers play it, so you could definitely understand the power of it. Into the level 45 row, Manatee definitely going to be your go-to. If you're playing Crane, you want to make sure that you're always Manateeing before Crane if you have the Manatee available. If you're playing really aggressive, let's just say maybe you're playing against Boomkins as well. Let's just say you're playing against Boomkins as well. You Manatee into way the Crane, and the next one you're not going to have the Manatee available, so you have to make the decision. Do you want to use 25,000 mana to use that way the Crane and get out of the root beam? Is there enough pressure, or would you rather just wait it out and save way the Crane for the next Manatee? So it's kind of up to you. That's probably why some people actually play Dark Iron Dwarf or Gnome. If they're struggling into Boomkin teams, just because you can way the Crane is literally 25% of your mana. It's crazy. So using that Manatee is pretty important. Also, if you're not playing against Boomkins and you could use your Manatee more loosely, make sure, like if you want to go for a Crane, you can Manatee and try and get some use out of the Manatee before. You know, you can go for an Envelop, you can go for some spam surging, you could do multiple spells, and then you could Crane, and then, you know, because once you Crane, you're not spending any more mana. So if you actually use the first, like, you know, 5-6 seconds of the Manatee, even getting an enveloping up before you Crane gives you that 40% extra healing on the Crane, which is instantly going to top anyone. Crane healing is already absolutely absurd. It's pretty unbelievable. So that's definitely going to be a must. This is actually an interesting one. Tiger Tail Sweep probably on the weaker end of the level 60 talents, mainly because it just, the 10-second cooldown off, it doesn't really feel that powerful. Ring of Peace is incredible. There's so many different ways that you can use Ring of Peace. You can use it as an interrupt. You can use it as a way to box people out. So if someone's chasing you, you drop the Ring of Peace and you run away, and, you know, kind of use that barrier where they can't get to you. You can actually use it, like if someone's on the pillar and you Ring of Peace them, they just get spam kicked into the wall, and it actually kind of like ruins their life for a while. You can use it to knock people off Z-axis, Blade's Edge, Magumbala. Ring of Peace is really, really sick. You can use it to, you know, bump people out of line of sight from the healers if they're attacking you. We've done that a few times. So Ring of Peace is probably my favorite ability on this row. I think it's got a super high, you know, skill floor, I guess, the way you use it. Because there's so many different ways that you can use it. You can simply use it to maybe avoid CC, stop some, you know, sheeps, fears, things like that. Song of Chi-Ji is also going to be really powerful. Because it gives you a third CCDR, which is insane. There's sometimes where I play comps, and I'll try and discuss this a little bit more, where I roll in, I get an in cap, I start casting Song. If I get locked out, I use my leg sweep, and then off the leg sweep, off the lockout, I can actually still get the Song with a leg sweep up. So it's pretty insane. Like 3 separate CCDRs. It's really, really powerful. It's really powerful. I've used this Song of Chi-Ji quite a bit when I'm playing DK Shadow Priest. One of the reasons why I think Song of Chi-Ji is really powerful right now is because a lot of healers are Mistweavers, and if you don't have that Mistweaver CC'd, you guys all know that Mistweaver HPS is unbelievable. If they're not CC'd, people are going to full HP. So this is something where I would say, you know, maybe if you lose a game, think about it. You know, like, man, we couldn't finish that team. Maybe we need a little bit more CC. Let's try Song of Chi-Ji. Tiger Tail Sweep, I haven't really played it all this patch. I can't really think of too many situations where I would play it. It just, I don't know. I really don't know. Your comp has to probably be lacking a severe amount of stuns, which means it's probably already really awkward in the first place, just because you need to stun more frequently. One of the reasons why regular leg sweep is just completely fine in general is that it already lines up with Crane, you know? So it's one of those things where I don't even really know. I don't even really know. Level 75 talents, you can switch up all the time. Versus Shadow Priest, I actually really like Healing Elixir because you can use Healing Elixir while silenced. Versus things like Boomkin and Elemental Shaman, Diffuse Magic is definitely going to be a lifesaver. Versus things like Rogue Mage that try and one-shot you, or maybe even Turbo, Dampen Harm could be really powerful. So all three of these options are just completely dependent on what you play against. You know, do you need diffuse magic to survive heavy burst damage? Do you need healing elixir just for, you know, it's going to be a long game. You have a little bit extra healing on yourself. You know, you're able to use it in silence, which is great versus Shadow Priest. Even good versus Boomkin sometimes, depending on the situation. Obviously, diffuse is going to be really good, but, you know, if you're in a beam or something, you just heal yourself up a couple times. So you can use all three. So this is for... I would say that this is probably for heavy melee damage, diffuse magic for heavy magic damage, and healing elixir kind of like a little bit of an in-between. They're all on use abilities, so you're not really going to be able to do too much with picking something that's just passive that's going to give you, you know, that reduction. Healing elixir used to be passive, so you got to make sure that you guys actually use it now manually. Otherwise, you're not going to get any healing out of it. So Summon Jade Statue is going to be the #1 talent pick here. I don't think the other ones are even close to it. The statue actually is 10, 12, 15% of healing. It's really, really powerful. And one thing that I want you guys to make sure that you do is at the start of every single arena game, whoever you think is going to be the target first, you know, gates open, you put your statue down, you can even do it in the starting entrance, and you press Soothing Mist on that person. What that is going to do is it's going to activate the statue's healing. If you start the game and you don't cast that serpent, or you don't cast that Soothing Mist, the statue's not doing anything. So let's just say, you know, game started, you're fighting against a rogue mage, you know, you're doing nothing, you get open on, boom. All right, so if I was playing against rogue mage, the first thing I do is I put that statue down, I press my Soothing. It only has to be for a second. Now you got the statue healing for the entire CC chain that's about to hit you, or for the stuns are about to go out, so you want to make sure that you use that Soothing Mist, get the statue activated, that way you have the healing for the entire chain. So that's definitely going to be the go-to. Thunder Focus Tea. Focus Thunder is once again going to be the only talent you should be using in this row. For PvP, of course. This is a PvP only guide. I don't really do RBGs or PvE or anything like that. But if so, Upwelling is probably better for those. But yeah, you don't really ever use Essence Font in PvP. I don't even know what this is. Rising Sun Kick heals all your allies. Yeah. No bueno, no bueno. So Focus Thunder is going to be the go-to here, and what that's going to do is it's going to allow your Thunder Focus Tea to have 2 charges. This is very, very powerful. A lot of people ask me, what is going to be, what's the best way to use your Thunder Focus Tea? How to use your Thunder Focus Tea? So if I need a really quick big heal, I'm going to use my Thunder Focus Tea for enveloping. So it's going to heal for quite a bit. So you just get the Thunder Focus Tea up here, which you can use while you're Soothing Mist, by the way. You get the instant enveloping. The enveloping mist heals for that instant amount. It's a pretty solid amount of healing. The other way you're going to use it is for free Vivify in those really long games where you feel like you're kind of struggling with mana, especially if you're playing Mana Tea. You get a free Vivify out of it. When you use Vivify, you want to make sure you have Renewing Mist on as many people that are taking damage, because Vivify heals every single person that your Renewing Mist is on. You want to make sure that you're soothing the person that is taking the most damage when you press Vivify. That way they get affected by the mastery, because no one else is actually going to get affected by the mastery except the person that you're actually targeted on. So those are 2 ways that you use Thunder Focus Tea. So you want to make sure that big heal, enveloping, mana efficiency, Vivify, and then if you're doing damage, aka with Way the Crane, you want to make sure that you use Thunder Focus Tea for Way the Crane, because that allows you to get many Rising Sun Kicks, which is insane. You're going to do so much healing, you're going to do so much damage, which means that you definitely want to use Thunder Focus Tea for Rising Sun Kick if you're playing Way the Crane. And then I never use Thunder Focus Tea for Renewing Mist in Arena. It just doesn't feel like it's worth it. Feels like you already always have Renewing Mist up. It's one of those buttons that you're always pressing. The increased duration is not something that you're actually going to get benefit out of. It's more for PvE because you get more targets to actually Vivify. But yeah. So that's Thunder Focus Tea, and that's the talent. So we're going to talk about honor talents here. I actually generally play Gladiator's Medallion almost every single game as Monk. Just having that instant be able to break out of any CC as well as Cocoon is really, really powerful. Sometimes I play Relentless against some really heavy CC comps. For example, like maybe Shadow Priest Boomkin, because Shadow Priests have a ton of CC. Maybe against like Ellie Boomkin or something. But once again, Gladiator's Medallion feels really, really good for me on Monk. It feels really powerful. If you feel like you're sitting a ton of CC, you could try Relentless. If you're playing Orc, you could try Adaptation against maybe like Hunter teams or something like that. But Adaptation doesn't really feel that great for me. So I would say for the most part that Medallion is going to be the play. Now, Honor Talents is going to be really tricky because there are so many good Honor Talents. There's not many healers that actually have this many good Honor Talents. I feel like Holy Priest might be the only other one. It feels like every single Honor Talent is just so good and could be absolutely critical in every single situation. So Eminence is one of the best Honor Talents that you can use if you're getting trained. It makes your port cooldown go from 45 seconds to 20 seconds, or excuse me, 25 seconds. It's going to allow you to kite really, really well. I don't end up using this too much. It's more or less one of those things where if I die to a team and I face them again the next time, I'm like, okay, I'll use short port here. It's not one of those things that I'll normally be like, man, I really want short port versus this. It's kind of like one of those things where you just got to test the water. So if you're getting trained and you're dying to something, Eminence is going to be really, really good for you. Way the Crane, you know, it needs no introduction. Every single one of you guys, if you're PvPing, you should know what Way the Crane is. It's a 1 minute cooldown. It costs a ton of mana. It does an unbelievable amount of damage, and it does an unbelievable amount of healing. It's something that you want to avoid at all costs. If you're playing against it, you want to make sure you CC it. You want to make sure you run away from it. But if you're the Mistweaver, you want to make sure you murder people with it. I'll talk about how to set that up in a minute here. Chrysalis, I think this talent is a must play every single time. Short Cocoon on Mistweaver is one of the reasons why they are the most broken at the moment. So I would definitely recommend playing Short Cocoon just about every single game. Don't ask me why I'm not spec'd into it right now. I swear I play it every single game. I wouldn't lie to you, chat. Counteract Magic. Anytime you fight against a team that has a magic debuff, UA Warlocks, Fire Mages, Shadow Priest, Boomkins, Elemental Shaman, you want to try and play Counteract Magic. Counteract Magic is insane. Depending on the comp, I would debate whether you actually want it or not. Like, for example, Shadow Priest Melee, you might not be able to use it. Shadow Priest Boomkin, you definitely want to use it. You know, Shadow Priest Ellie, you probably want to use it. Ellie Boomkin, you probably want to use it. But if it's like Boomkin Windwalker or Ellie Rogue or something like that, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to use. I'll try and explain to you the best I can on the way I actually choose my honor talents. Doma Mist, it's actually a really good honor talent, but I just feel that you don't have room for it anymore personally. I feel like you can't actually use it anymore. You don't get purged out as easily anymore since Soothing Mist is no longer spellable. Thank you, Blizzard. So I would, unless you're really having a really hard time with people just purging you out, I would recommend not using it. Refreshing Breeze, I'm not even going to go over that. It's just bad. Could be good in RBGs. Healing Sphere is one that I actually really like a lot, but I end up not being able to take it just because the honor talents are so good. It doesn't really feel that insane. If you want to use it for Shadow Priest and you feel you have room for it, you know, the way you're playing, or, you know, oh, my stream kind of died out there for a second. I'm getting some internet issues here. Sorry about that. Healing Sphere, if you want to try it out versus like Shadow Priest or something, the way you're playing, you feel like you have the honor talent for it, you feel like you have the availability, you can give it a go. You can use it while silenced. It's going to dispel all those VTs, Shadow Word Pains, all those magic dots, and you won't actually get the VT dispel, the kickback, so it's actually really powerful in that regard. It's pretty good healing, and it's not a lot of mana, and it's great for locking down Shadow Priest if it's something that you're interested in. But yeah. Grapple Weapon, phenomenal. 45-second cooldown, 6-second disarm. This is great into Death Knights on Unholy Frenzy. It's phenomenal into Death Knights on Unholy Frenzy. When Death Knights pop on Unholy Frenzy, every button is necrotic, 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 necrotic. Granted that you can actually heal through Death Knights pretty easily. If you have the room for it, I would say it's probably pretty good. It's really good against Warrior CDs. It's great against Enhancement Shaman CDs. Grapple Weapon's really solid. So you have really, really, really difficult decisions here when you're picking all these talents. A lot of the times, I actually don't play Surging Mist. You guys are going to call me crazy. I would not recommend it unless it's something that you feel comfortable with. But if you're fighting against a team and you're like, you know what, this isn't really doing that much damage, I'm just going to play without Surging Mist. Playing without Surging Mist is definitely going to change up your rotation a little bit. You're going to use a lot of Thunder Focuses for enveloping, for big heals. You're going to have to Vivify and replace for Surging Mist sometimes. It's definitely going to hurt your mana a little bit more, but sometimes your mana doesn't really matter. If you want to play Way the Crane, which you can every game, it's going to hurt your honor talents a lot, but Way the Crane's really powerful. I don't really like playing Way the Crane against mages or anything that could CC it really heavy. Sometimes it's really hard to play Way the Crane against like a really good melee cleave too, just because you kind of like roll into the middle of the map and you just get annihilated. But Way the Crane's definitely really, really powerful. So it's up to you. Surging Mist I would recommend probably versus like any melee team. When I say I don't play Surging Mist, if I'm playing against like, when I'm actually playing against RMP, I don't use Surging Mist. RMP, I play Chrysalis, Counteract Magic for Frost, and well, I actually didn't even go over my Arm Mastery. Zen Focus. Zen Focus is really good. Arm Mastery is crazy. And then, for example, for like Boomkin Shadow Priest, I'd probably play Wei, Counteract, and Chrysalis. Versus Ellie Boomkin, I would probably play Wei, Counteract, and Chrysalis. Once again, I feel like you don't actually need Surging versus that kind of stuff, just because their damage is spiky, but it's only spiky every so often. Counteract Magic is going to be able to keep people, topped. You're still going to have to use Vivifies every now and then, especially with Thunder Focus Tea. One thing to note is that if you're playing Crane, you want to try and make sure you Crane always with Thunder Focus Tea, but Crane's a 1 minute cooldown. So in between Thunder Focus Tea with Crane, you'll be able to use your second Thunder Focus Tea freely. So you want to make sure you're using Thunder Focus Tea on cooldown. Use it for the first Crane, 30 seconds later you use it, 30 seconds later it's available again for Crane. If you're going to wait for Mana Tea, which is a minute, which would be another 60 seconds later, use it again, and then it'll be up again for the Crane. So using Thunder Focus Tea is really important for your healing. It's really important for your efficiency. If you feel like you're ooming, you want to make sure you're using Thunder Focus Tea for Vivify. Make sure you have Renewing Mist on that target. Make sure you're healing the main target with the Vivify. That way you get the benefit of the mastery. So Honor Talents are really tough. Versus something like Turbo, I'd probably not use Crane. I would probably use Chrysalis. I'd probably use Surging. If they go me, I would probably use Eminence. If they're not going me, I would maybe use Disarm, try and max range so I don't have to use deal with Wind Shear. You could play Arm Mastery. It's really difficult. You could disarm Warrior CDs. You could disarm the Shaman when he uses Earthen Rage or Earthen Spike. It's gonna take a lot for you guys to play around with this. These are really, really good talents. So I want to talk about Azerite traits a little bit. There's a few that you guys are probably very familiar with. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. Overflowing Mist is probably going to be one of the most common ones. I personally don't use Overflowing Mist anymore. I think it's still a decent trait. But personally, I just don't really find myself using Envelop nearly as often as I need to. A lot of the times you actually are being really mana efficient by not using Envelop and just using Surging. Surging can literally chunk someone for 30% of their health. So you just let them get to 70, Surging. Let them get to 70, Surging. Let them get to 70, Surging. I find myself using Enveloping mainly for stuff that has insane damage where you actually really need that 40% healing increase. You feel like you're going to take a CC. Or if you're actually not playing Surging, you end up using Enveloping a lot more. But basically, I feel like Overflowing Mist healing is actually generally not that good anymore. I think it's actually pretty nerfed in PvP. So it's definitely not one of the traits that I would like recommend anymore as like a tier 1. It's definitely, maybe it still is tier 1, but maybe there's other ones that are just a little bit better. I don't actually think monks have the best traits, unfortunately. The trait I actually found that I think everyone should use no matter what is 1 Burst of Life. 1 Burst of Life with the Honor Talent is going to make your Life Cocoon a 55-second cooldown. So it just feels like every 55 seconds it's something that you could just kind of shove out. 55-second Life Cocoon, just, oh, you're dying, Life Cocoon. Oh, you're dying, Life Cocoon. It feels like it's literally almost always up. So you always want 1 Burst of Life. And the trait I've found actually to be the best, believe it or not, is the new trait that came out, Apothecary's Concoction. I understand that you guys probably are not going to be able to get this very easily. I got super lucky streamer benefits. I got the helm off Ibis. I got the chest from actually doing the, what's that dang thing called that stinks? Oh, the Warfronts. I got the chest from doing the Warfronts from the 385 quest. So definitely you guys want to make sure you guys do that. Apothecary's Concoction has really, really crazy synergy with Mistweaver. So number 1, it gives you an extra hot, which is unbelievable. It does more healing based off the target's HP. So it's like the Shaman Mastery type thing. The weaker that your target has that has it, the more healing it's actually going to do. So it has great synergy based off health pool. And then Life Cocoon reads, absorbing damage and increasing all healing over time effects by 50%. So if you have an Apothecary's Concoction and you Life Cocoon, you're getting really, really crazy synergy there because it's making the Apothecary's Concoction heal for more. Same thing goes with Coastal Surge for that Life Cocoon. So those extra hots that you can actually put on a target works really, really well with Life Cocoon, and you have the shorter Life Cocoon now, so everything's kind of just all working in conjunction. Another trait that I've seen that's actually kind of interesting is Secret Infusion if you have any of these. After using Thunder Focus Tea, which you should be using on cooldown, you can either get the crit, the mastery, or the versatility, depending on what ability you use, which is actually pretty sick. It's a lot of stat. Other than that, I don't really think any I don't really think any traits are too insane. I think the one that resets the cooldown of your revival could be okay. I really don't think there's that many good ones. A couple of crit ones might be all right. Fauna Life is terrible. Overflowing Mist is still pretty powerful. Where's the other one? I can't remember the name. It's when you like Vivify crit. It's actually not bad if you're playing the Vivify build. This one, Uplifted Spirits. Like if you're not playing Surging, your Vivify heals for additional and the crits reduce the cooldown of revival. It's not really going to be that great unless you're not playing Surging. So I would definitely recommend Overflowing Mist, Apothecary. If you have it, Apothecary is probably the best in one burst of life. Maybe even Secret Infusion if you have it. So I don't think that Mistweaver monks have the best traits. It always feels really awkward playing a class that has like kind of a different PvE rotation than PvP. It's the same problem with Shaman all the time. You get Healing Rain traits, you get Chain Heal traits, which actually kind of good now, depending on what you're doing. But monks just have Revival traits, Vivify traits, Essence Font traits. Like you don't really use those in PvP for the most part. So it's a little difficult to get great value out of it. So stat priority. You guys are gonna, call me goofy for this, but I don't actually know the best secondary stats. I'm still heavily debating. So the best stat that you can get for a Mistweaver, without a doubt, is versatility as a secondary stat. Versatility is absolutely insane. Increases your damage, which is really good for Crane. Reduces the damage you take, which is your biggest weakness as a Mistweaver monk, is dying 100 to 0. So having as much damage reduction as you can is going to be life or death, literally. And then obviously increases your base healing throughput. So versatility, greater than all. Versatility is just unbelievable. The trinket I actually use right now is Doom's Hatred off the World Boss, which I think is really solid. It's got really good uptime. It gives you versatility, which you love, and intellect. And I've been debating really heavily between the Gladiator's Medallion and the badge. The badge is really insane for Crane. You get so much more damage out of it. Medallion being a little less bursty with the proc, or excuse me, the on use, and a little more consistent. Pick your poison, I suppose. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I've just been, I think badge is probably better for Crane, and I think Medallion might be better if you're not playing Crane, personally, just because if you're not playing Crane, it's going to be a little bit of a dampener game, and Medallion's just going to give you a little more healing throughput. So after versatility, I think it's either between crit or haste. I think mastery is kind of a dead stat. I know when I was at BlizzCon, a lot of players were playing verse haste, and I really couldn't figure out why, because it feels like monks don't really have GCD issues. It feels like they don't really have casting issues. It feels like they don't really gain too much from haste. So I'm kind of at like a standstill where I'm not sure if I like haste better than crit. I feel like I like crit better. Crit's worse in PvP, I know that, but if you crit a Rising Sun kick during Way the Crane, you do insane damage, you do insane healing. If you're critting, your hot ticks or your Surging Mist, you're doing unbelievable healing. Surging Mist already has like a 0.5 second global, so having haste isn't going to affect that. Having haste isn't really going to affect your hot ticks that much because you don't always have enveloping up. It's hard to say. I would just say, do your best to get versatility gear. If it has crit, that's fine. If it has haste, that's fine. As you can see, I kind of have a mixture of both. That's crit, that's mastery, that's not really that good. That's mastery, that's not good. But there's crit, there's haste, there's haste. It's just, I'm kind of all over the place. So, yeah, so. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I'll let you guys decide there if you're able to. If not, just go for the most verse you can. A lot of people ask me if they think the verse enchant is better than the weapon enchant Coastal Surge. I just like Coastal Surge. I feel like when I play the verse enchant, I can't notice it. When I see Coastal Surge up, I'm like, oh, I got Coastal Surge, I check my logs after the game, does between 3 to 5% of my healing. My traits do between, 3 to 10% of my healing. And it's like, oh, I'm getting all this extra healing. Maybe the versatility could be better. Versatility is probably definitely better if you're a Crane monk. If you want to do big damage, I would recommend going to versatility enchant. But yeah. Healing rotation. It's probably one of the more simpler rotations. You always want to have Renewing Mist out as often as possible. Never not have Renewing Mist up. Renewing Mist should always be up at all times. Other than that, Mistweaver monks have all their healing baked into Soothing Mist. You want to try and always be casting. You don't want to cast Enveloping. You don't want to cast Vivify. I can't actually use Surging right now because I'm not war moded, but you don't want to just hard cast Surging. You used to have to last patch, but I'm not even going to talk about that. So everything's baked into Soothing Mist. So most healing possible is have Renewing Mist up, Soothing, Thunder Focus, Envelop, and then Surge. Just because your Envelop is going to give you a big heal. If someone's actually really low, you want a Soothing Mist, and you actually want a Surging Mist before you envelop, even though the envelop gives you more healing, because if they're low enough to the point where they die in the global of the envelop, you just got to get the Surging Mist up as fast as possible. Surging Mist is an obscene amount of healing, and the more you do it, the more healing they take, upwards of 100% more healing. And it's a 0.5 second global, if you guys didn't know that. So it's definitely way better as like a button to press immediately out of CC if you need to. Other than that, I mean, healing monk rotation is really, really simple. It's just Soothing Mist, Surge for efficiency, Envelop when you really, really feel that you have to, because they're going to increase your healing by 40%. And if you're playing Surging Mist, if you're actually playing Surging Mist, I would say absolutely never use Vivify unless it's with Thunder Focus Tea only for mana efficiency. Because when you Thunder Focus Tea, you'll get 2 Vivifies for free, which is free healing. You know what I mean? If you have nothing else to press, because there's not really too much to press with Thunder Focus Tea. You know, you do Vivify 1, you do Vivify 2, and it's just absolutely free healing. You know, you see the Vivify there for 10k, or the Gust of Mist for 5k, and yeah, it's just free healing. So if you're not playing Surging Mist, you're definitely going to have to Vivify a lot more often. It could be a little bit difficult, but generally the healing rotation for Monk is incredibly, incredibly simple. On the other hand, this is a pretty common question that I get. It's how to do your damage rotation. There's 2 ways to do your damage rotation. You have the way that is with no setup. I'll show you guys my Crane macro in a second here. I gotta find it. I'm not actually spec'd into it, so we're gonna pretend I'm Crane. Where's this Crane macro at? I don't label my macros, so kind of an idiot in that regard. Where are you at, Crane macro? Oh, it's right here. So this is my Crane macro. Slash cast Thunder Focus Tea, because you always want to Thunder Focus Tea with Crane. Slash cast Way the Crane. Slash use Blood Fury. And slash use my trinkets. So this is the most damage I could do. So with 0 setup, you pop Crane, and it pops all your stuff. You run in, Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, or excuse me, Tiger Palm. Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm. And then you do 3 Blackout Kicks, and then you hope to reset the Rising Sun Kick. And if you don't, you do like 2 more jabs into a Blackout Kick, then try and reset the Rising Sun Kick. So the best thing that you could do is try and get as many Rising Sun Kicks as possible. It's actually really common these days that you don't even set up your Crane anymore. What I mean by that is last expansion, you try to do triple Tiger Palm to get the Blackout Kick thing, but it's actually not that important anymore. So let's just say this is the setup Crane. It's still good to do. It's very simple. You press your Crane macro, and it's just Rising Sun Kick into triple, into Rising Sun Kick, into jab, into Rising Sun Kick, into jab, jab. That way you get the triple, and then you just try and reset the Rising Sun Kick again, because it's a lot of damage, a lot of healing. So it's pretty simple. It's just no setup. It's just Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, triple Blackout Kick, and then hope that you get the reset. If you don't, you could probably do 1 to 2 more jabs and then Blackout Kick to try and reset the Rising Sun Kick. But if you have the time and the globals to set up the Crane, you're going to do more damage. But if you don't need to be worried about it, because the reason it's still completely fine is that you get all these globals with or you get all the Rising Sun Kicks. So once again, a non-setup, you just press your Crane macro. And, well, you should be Thunder Focus Tea before Crane. But yeah, either way, it's just Rising Sun Kick, jab, Rising Sun Kick, jab. That would have healed for like 70k right there. Rising Sun Kick, jab, and you get the triple Blackout Kick, which I'm talking about, that you get from the jabs, and then you hope to reset that. But if you don't, you don't. So yeah, you do want to make sure that you try and Mana Tea before Crane. And then the same thing goes for the regular damage rotation. You can actually still do damage without Way the Crane if you want, by just doing the same thing. You can use your Thunder Focus Tea aggressively, kind of like how I'm doing here. I'm not actually specing a Crane. You just Thunder Focus Tea and do the same thing all over again. But that's your damage rotation for Monk. It's probably the best way that you can heal. It's all about doing the Rising Sun Kicks, man. The Rising Sun Kicks just do so much damage to do so much healing. So Monks are probably one of the most mobile classes in the game. First thing I want to talk about on Monk is getting great port positioning. You want to always have your port in a position where you can get away very easily on the Grand, just behind a pillar generally. Dude, I can't even remember all the maps. I was about to go through all the maps here. Magumbala, you just want to either up top, behind the big pillar. You can actually have it in the starting entrance on the room. You can have it in the starting entrance on the room and then go all the way up and then you could port like kind of through the wall and go down. On Ruins of Lordaeron, you could have it in the room and play where the stealth site comes out, and you could port back, or you could put it on the tomb, or the gravestone, and play mid, then port back. You can put it on the cart, you know, port the opposite way. Blade's Edge, I like it behind the pillar of like the main bridge. You jump down, you port up, you get away that way. Dalaran just behind the boxes. What other map am I missing? Ashmane's just behind any pillar. On Tiger's Peak, you can have it behind one of those little tiger statues, the big one or the small one. So yeah, it's just port positioning is very important. Make sure you don't lose your port. Also, a very common mistake is that when you port, you forget to redrop your port. So almost always, if I'm safe, I redrop my port first global. So you want to make sure that you always try and have your port in a good position. Don't ever lose track of your port. It's definitely going to be your lifesaver. One of the things I was going to say about monk mobility that I've learned is you want to try and like spread out your rolls. You don't want to just like roll if you don't have to, because if someone gets to you with one gap closer, that's really, really bad. For example, warriors, if you roll, there's a good chance that they're just going to leap to you. So one of the ways that I like to kind of handle myself here is if I'm getting trained, and I'm not perfect at this. I still have a lot to learn. I like to try and spread out like people's gap closers. So let's just say this is the start of game. This is Nagrand Arena. You know, I get a little bit distance to my port. I get charged on. I'm going to roll here. If they connect, I'm probably going to port here. If they're trying to get to me again, I'm probably going to ROP here. If they get to me off that, I'm probably going to have my second roll, which is pretend I roll. Fast forward. Okay. And now I'm close to having my next roll up. I'm hoping to have all their gap closers out of the way. If not, this is when I start kind of feeling, you know, kind of compelled to use my CEC, in cap, stun, whatever. Hopefully off that, you're still getting peels. You roll again. So you want to kind of like try and break up your rolls and your ports and things like that. You should be able to get distance. You know what I mean? Just based off this scenario, warrior charges first global, you roll, he leaps, you port, he gets around, you ROP. He's not getting to you for a while if there's a slow on him. So one thing that, yeah, so what I was going to basically say is after people connect to me, I always like to roll before I port. That's why you're getting one roll on cooldown. It's really important. But what you don't want to do is try and be too greedy. And this has happened to me before where it's like, yo, these guys are on me. I'm going to roll first. And when they reconnect, I'm going to port. If you're fighting a turbo, if you're fighting an RMP, if you're fighting anything that's absolutely smashing you, do not be afraid to press the port button. You know, it's great to get max value by getting a roll on cooldown. It's really nice to get that roll on cooldown. But if you got to port, you got to port. You know, don't be too afraid. Don't be too afraid to use that. So monk mobility, obviously really strong. You got the rolls, you got the port, and then you want to make sure that you throw the ROP in there. You know, I generally like the ROP after I port when people come back. But the one way I don't really like using ROP is ROPing and standing in it. This is pretty bad, I think. You always want to ROP and then kind of have room to go. You know what I mean? So if that ROP was still down here, I'm all the way over here. It's almost like I rolled again. They reconnect. You're just rolling. You feel me? So yeah, monk mobility obviously really solid. And one of the biggest weaknesses that monks have always had, in my opinion, is their defensive cooldowns. Their defensive cooldowns never really went toe to toe with any other healer. But now Cocoon's a 55-second cooldown, and if you guys didn't know, Revival got stealth buff this patch to like 80% or something. This reads 21,000 right now. You guys might not be able to see it because my sellout ads, but it reads 21,000. When I get into Arena, it just says 38,000 for some reason. So Revival's really powerful. Cocoon's really powerful. So one thing I want to touch on is Life Cocoon. You should use very like loosely. You know what I mean? Like, it should almost be the first CD of the game, and you don't even have to worry about it. You know, when my teammates are taking damage, press Life Cocoon, no problem. And then Revival is one of those ones that is way better as actually a mass heal or an AoE dispel. One thing that I would try and mention is if possible, you should try and get an enveloping up before you Revival, if possible, because then you get that 40% extra heal. If you're actually really struggling and you have multiple targets to heal and you have like Mana Tea up or something, you can literally Mana Tea and then envelop this guy, and then envelop the next guy, and then envelop the next guy, and then you Revival 3 people with an enveloping mist, all for 40% more. It's absurd healing. So yeah, Revival is one of the ones that I generally try and use a little bit. I use a little bit later in the fight. The way I would use Fort Brew is honestly very preemptively. So if you're fighting something that you can think can kill you, generally forting really late is really bad. You got to try and use fort like, okay, these guys are going to swap to me. You know, I see these guys getting closer and closer and closer to me. I'm going to press fort brew here. If they don't go you, whatever. You know what I mean? Don't feel like you're wasting it, because I do it all the time. I fight rogue mage and my teammate gets sapped. I press fort brew. If they open on me, I have 20% reduction. If they don't open on me, whatever. Just because if you fight rogue mage and you don't fort brew, you're gonna die anyway. If you fight turbo, you don't fort brew, they're gonna get trinket, they're gonna get cocoon, you're gonna die anyway. So it's just it's one of those ones that if you use it late, it's not really gonna help you, because it doesn't increase your maximum HP currently anymore. It used to be kind of like a 20% heal. It doesn't do that anymore. So I would even say if you get swapped to and you somehow miraculously survive the stun by porting, try and hold on to the fort brew. You know, let's just say you do fight rogue mage, you live 10% health, you go behind the pillar. First thing I would recommend doing is, if you're playing it, just double healing elixir, aura mastery, you get this, the thunder focus up, get the envelop up, and just spam the surging. And then once you're off stun DR, if they're still training you, press the fort brew. It should definitely help. But yeah, so I think that might be it. All right, we're gonna pause here, and I'm gonna ask chat if there's any other questions they have, and if so, plebs, you can edit in. I feel like I kind of discussed everything I actually asked before. If I had anything else to discuss. But yeah, I think that's honestly probably going to be it for the mistweaver guide. There's a ton of utility. Oh, I didn't really utilize how to CC. Okay, we're gonna edit this in real quick. So mistweaver obviously have really powerful CC. One of the reasons it's so good is just because you have a ton of mobility. You can get in, you can get out, and you have instant CC, which is really, really, really scary. You have the in cap, you have the stun. There's multiple ways you could do this. Some people use in cap to set up their stun to make sure people aren't moving, because it's actually really hard to land leg sweep if people are moving. So you can in cap into stun, or you can just do your own CC chain with in cap, stun, sleep. You could in cap sleep if you get kick, stun, and then hopefully the kick's over, and then you can still sleep, so you have a ton of CC that way. But mistweaver CC is definitely something you want to be utilizing very well. Sometimes you play really aggressive for it. One thing to note is that if you're actually kind of a target of choice, for example, if you're fighting against things like turbo and RMP, I say this over and over again because these are things that actually probably kill me the most on my monk. You don't want to sacrifice too much mobility. You know, let's just say you have one roll left, you have no port. You probably don't want to roll into the middle of the map and just get clocked. So you got to be a little careful in that regard. So if you have a lot of mobility, you can go for the CC, especially if you have defenses. If you don't have too much, you probably don't want to go for it as much. But yeah, definitely a lot of ways you can use it. Also, if you're getting trained the whole game, you can just, you know, when you port, you know, someone comes behind the pillar, you can hit them with an in cap, then you can roll away. It's really good to actually CC people. If you're really getting trained hard, CC people before you use your mobility. That way you get more distance and they can't immediately use that gap closer. You know, I used to struggle against sub rogue sometimes because the sub rogue would be on me and I'd roll and he would shadow step, and then I'd roll and he would shadow step again, and then I'd port and be like, oh my god, how's this guy on me? But if I literally just in capped and rolled one time and went behind a pillar, like, they're not going to attack me anymore. So it's there's a lot of ways to use it. But mistweaver is obviously a really powerful class. Their healing throughput is just absurd to any other healer right now. Their cooldowns are so strong. Life Cocoon, Way the Crane, and even revival is crazy now, that you just your mana efficiency is unreal, your healing's unreal, your damage is unbelievable, especially if you're playing Crane. One thing that I kind of forgot to mention is if you're playing with melee class, you want to try and always like zap people. It could literally just be for a second. Let's see if this is off CD. It's not. It could literally just be for a second, and you put up that 5% physical damage debuff. Just with Crackling Jade Lighting, it'd just be like literally like this. Crackle, it's up. That's like a 20-second debuff. You want to try and put that up for melee. Let me see if I could find it. Yeah, right here. Damage weakens the target, increasing physical damage taken by 5%. Definitely something you want to do if you're playing with melee. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I hope this guide helped you guys with Mistweaver. Pogs. All right. The Mistweaver guide, boys. The Mistweaver guide.